space today, and Jamison bonds for providing us for lunch. So I'll go ahead and let Liz introduce our speaker, and then we've got some announcements afterwards about upcoming events that I want to talk about. But Liz has asked that we go ahead and have a speaker right away. So welcome. Welcome, Liz.
Hello, everyone. Liz Martin, Providence Firm Law. Many of you, I am working with Jamison now on a consulting basis, and we're doing Elderlaw, Medicaid crisis planning, and Jamison is the foremost authority in our territory. Worked many years now in estate planning, Elderlaw. That is his wheelhouse. We don't do a lot of other types of law because this is what Jamison has found and loves to do, and we know how many people in our community need Medicaid crisis planning resources and things like that. So he's going to speak a little bit. I'll put some handouts. Jamison has an office on Old Greenwood. He is in Fort Smith on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and he's in Conway Monday, Thursday, and Friday. So we have two offices. Jamison is the only attorney, and felt good enough and referred enough people to him in my lifetime when I was at hospice and home care to send people to him that have those questions. And the way our role works is if you have a family, like a while ago, Candace called me at 11:15, Candace Cox, and she was sitting with a family, and she had a question right then. So all you have to do is pick up the phone and call me. I have cards over on the table, and my number is the same as when I was with Peachtree Hospice, Park Hospice, and Home Instead. So my number has never changed since 1997. But you can call me, ask questions. We'll see maybe what the family needs. Sometimes they need to hire an attorney. Sometimes they don't. We can guide you through that over the phone. But if you need a consult, then Jamison, we take you into the office, and then Jamison and Valerie, our paralegal, they work with you and your clients. So if you have any questions today, just be thinking of those, write them down, and we would love for this to be interactive. But Jamison, come on up. And if you will, everyone, if you stand here so that the Facebook Live can catch you, according to what I've been told by the ladies today.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Liz, and thank you, Holly, for having us out. How is everybody today? Yeah, good. I see a lot of familiar faces and a lot of new faces, so that's cool. I've met a lot of you guys before, but like Liz said, I've been around almost 13 years now in town, and all we do is really help people with two problems. One is when people pass away, we want to make sure whenever they die, they don't leave a big mess behind for their family. We want it to be as easy as possible, no taxes, no probate court, no fights, or no arguments between the family. And then the other thing of what we do is we know how to legally protect people's houses and people's money from long-term care costs. I think a lot of you know how much long-term care costs in here, and many people are shocked when they learn how expensive it is. And so it's been cool. I've got this little handout. It's more geared toward the people we all serve and you serve rather than you guys. But I will touch on a few things because it'll overlap with some of the stuff that you guys go through. And then at the end here, I'll talk for 10 or 15 minutes, and then I'll open it up. And if you guys want to bat any questions around, I'm happy to answer questions. Okay, the page that starts with what is probate. So you guys know what probate is for the most part, but I'll gloss over this. This isn't applicable here, but it ties into Medicaid. When people die, normally if there's a husband and wife, there's not a mess left behind when one person dies because the survivor is on bank accounts and the house and all that. But it's when the second person dies that probate's a thing, and that's like why people want to avoid problems at death. And what probate is, if you die and something's stuck in your name, the kids have to go to court and hire a lawyer and sue themselves in court and say, Judge, if you had a will, here's Mom's will. Mom had a house and 3 bank accounts and an IRA, and we want access to those as the kids. And the judge will let that happen, but they hold all that property hostage for a period of time to make sure that if Mom, who's gone, owed creditors money, that the creditors get paid off. So if she owed medical debt or credit card debt, it allows her creditors a chance to come and get paid before everything goes to the kids. And that sounds fine, but it takes forever and it costs a lot of money. On average, to go through probate, it takes 19 months in Arkansas. And even if every paper was turned in the day it's due and the judge signed the exact same day, that's not possible. It'd take 225 days and like 5% of the value of the estate. We've got one right now that's $4 million and the fees are well in excess of $100,000 for one probate case. It's crazy how expensive it is. And so a lot of people, it says, does a will avoid probate? A will does not avoid probate. And so many times you'll see on TV, oh, you get your ducks in a row by signing a will and that'll make sure kids get it. But all a will is it's just like instructions for the judge to follow on who gets what, who's in charge of the estate. But it doesn't shortcut probate or avoid it in any way. And so the common way to avoid probate, has anybody heard of like a revocable trust before? Yeah, see a lot of nods. A revocable trust is the most common way to avoid probate, and it's just like a will. It says when I set it up, I'm in charge of it. When I die, my spouse is. And after I'm gone, here's who I want my things to go to. But the kids don't have to go to lawyers. They don't have to go to court and probate. And instead of it taking like 19 months to go through court, they just need your death certificate. And within like 30 days, they can get access to bank accounts, sell real estate, do whatever they have to do in a matter of no time with no sort of administration costs. So that is good. Revocable trust is normally good. How in the world does this crap apply to your lives? We're there. So what's the hidden problem with the revocable trust? Whenever it's time to pay for in-home care, assisted living, or nursing home care, people are concerned with how to get benefits to help pay for it. Medicaid, like you guys all know, is the primary benefit that helps cover long-term care costs, and revocable trusts and Medicaid do not play well together. A lot of people think back when they did their revocable trust that all their assets are sheltered from a Medicaid spend down, but they're not. If they later have to go in and get Medicaid because they're in the nursing home, the government's going to review that trust, and because they're in control of that trust as the one who set it up, and they're the one who's the beneficiary during their lifetime, it's still, even though it's not their asset, it belongs to the trust, because they can get to it, it's still theirs to spend down. So it offers zero protection against a Medicaid spend down. And then Medicaid has different rules about the homestead. If you intend to return home or have a spouse or a dependent relative living in the house, you can own a house and be on Medicaid. But if it's in a revocable trust, it's no longer a non-countable resource. It becomes a countable one. So revocable trusts and Medicaid don't play nice. So what are the common ways to pay for in-home care, assisted living, and nursing home care? Does anybody know one of them? It's the test class, come on. Okay, so the three common ways: your normal insurance, when people have Medicare or private insurance, like you know, it's not going to cover those for much long of a time. It'll cover rehab. Medicare will cover rehab for 20 to 100 days. So if someone falls and breaks a hip, it'll pay for several weeks of care, but beyond that, they've got to figure out another way to pay for it. And so the first way to pay for it is someone can have private long-term care insurance, but for the most part, no one's got it. Back when they were our parents' age or grandparents' age, they were really good policies, but they kind of bite now. And unless you're 60 years old and in good health, you can't get long-term care insurance because you can't pass the medical exams in order to qualify for it. If someone's already at your home care agency or at your assisted living asking can they get it, well, they've missed the boat on that one. They're already too sick to qualify. The second one is they pay out of pocket, but this room knows how much care costs, and most people can't do it forever. DHS publishes the average nursing home rate every single year, and it's $8,834 a month in 2025. That's a lot of money. Even if you've saved up $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, most people can't bleed out $100,000 a year and not care about it. And so they've got to figure out another way to pay, and that's through Medicaid. Medicaid has a home waiver program that used to suck, and now it's great. And they have an assisted living waiver program. Holly, I know your place takes waiver. And then they've got long-term care Medicaid. And so Medicaid is the thing people need to start looking at whenever it's time to stop bleeding on the cost of care. The rub is everybody knows Medicaid's going to look at assets and income, and they want you to have a limited amount of assets and income to qualify for Medicaid. Okay, you following me so far? Anybody asleep yet? Yay, okay. So how does Medicaid treat assets and income? I'm preaching to the choir again. But Medicaid doesn't care at the front end when you qualify about the value of 3 assets. They don't care about the home, and the home includes all surrounding property and outbuildings. They don't care about 1 car, and they don't care about prepaid burial for both spouses. If there was 2 spouses, that's okay. Real quick on the house, there's 2 sets of Medicaid rules. One that come into play when you're qualifying at the beginning for Medicaid, and another set of rules that don't take place until you die, called Medicaid estate recovery. Most people know you can own a house and be on Medicaid, but after both husband and wife have died, Medicaid by law has to put a lien on the house, and then one day when the house is sold, they get reimbursed all those years they paid out in that person's care. And so most people think because you can own a house and be on Medicaid, eventually they'll pass it to their kids, but that won't happen without planning, because estate recovery means the government puts a lien on it, a claim on it when someone dies, to get reimbursed for the cost of their care. Does that make sense? Okay. And so, income-wise, let's keep talking about the assets. So the house, the car, and the burial. Everything else, they tally up all the assets, and they don't care if it's a checking, savings, CDs, IRAs, or cash value on life insurance policies. It's all considered assets. If you're married, they don't care if the house or the assets are in your name, your spouse's name, or joint. And it also doesn't matter if you've added a kid. They're going to add up all the assets. And so let's say we've got an example of Jim and Mary. They've got a house, a car, and prepaid burial, and $500,000, $100,000 in the bank, and we'll call it $400,000 in an investment account. For a single person, they'd have to take that $500,000 and spend down below $2,000 before they could qualify for Medicaid. So a lot of spending. And for a married couple, the government's a little bit nicer, but not perfectly nice. They take the $500,000 and they split it into 2 columns. And they say husband gets a side and the wife gets a side. The well spouse gets to protect up to half of the assets, but the half caps out at about $151,000. So instead of splitting 250, the well spouse only gets to keep $150,000 protected, and the other $350,000 would have to get spent down to $2,000 before they could get onto Medicaid. Does that make sense? Okay.
So they couldn't buy another asset with that, like a life policy or a burial policy with that money?
She's saying of this $350 that has to get spent, can they buy other assets to spend down, like prepaid burial, or what was the other?
Life policy, maybe, or
like a life insurance policy or something. That's a good question. Yes, so there are certain things you're allowed to spend out of this column, like that. Prepaid burial is a really common one. We're all going to die at some point. They're allowed to own a prepaid burial policy and be on Medicaid. And so if they have to spend this money down some way, well, that's a good way to invest it so the kids don't have to dig in their own pocket one day to cover burial. And then life insurance, you normally wouldn't buy out of that, but I will get into other assets you can spend down on in just a second if you're okay with it. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so $350 has to get spent down to $2,000. Let's say it's a married couple and they have $200,000 when they get sick. Split the assets into 2 columns. The well spouse keeps half, $100,000, and the other 100 has to get spent down. It's just their half taps out at $151,000-ish. Then these rules can also benefit married couples if they don't have much assets at all. The maximum the well spouse can keep is $150,000, but the minimum they can keep is about $31,000. So if we had a husband and wife where the wife had a stroke, goes to the nursing home, and they only have $30,000, you split it into 2 columns. The husband gets to keep every single bit of it. He doesn't have to spend any of it down because there's minimum amounts the well spouse can keep because they've got to be able to take care of themselves after the spouse goes to the nursing home. Income-wise, the sick spouse's income goes to pay for nursing home care. They're allowed to keep only $40 a month if they're on long-term care Medicaid. If they're on home waiver, they don't have to contribute their income toward the cost of care. There is no liability amount. If you're married, the well spouse, the general rule is the well spouse keeps all their income and the sick spouse's income goes to pay for the sick spouse's care as their liability or like their co-payment. Medicaid pays the rest. There are some rules to protect spouses. The government wants to make sure the spouse at home isn't left at home broke. And so if they make below a certain amount of money, it changes every year, but it's about $2,000 that before the sick spouse's Social Security and pension goes to the home, they get to supplement the well spouse's income to bump them up to that point. Sometimes we'll see little people who are 90 years old and the lady might only make like $600 in Social Security. Well, she can't live off $600. So when he goes in, if he had a little more income at $1,800, he's allowed to give her the amount of money every month to get her income up to closer to $2,000 a month before the rest of his money pays to the facility as a co-payment. So there's some cool protections for spouses. Real quick on these back to the assets. You split the assets in half with the married case. We have $500,000. 150 is protected and 350 has to get spent down. You said, how do we do it? People come to us with this problem. The facility says, well, you can't get Medicaid. And so they're led to think that, oh, we just have to spin through all this before we can get help. That's one way to do it, but that's a crappy way to do it if we want to protect what we worked all these years for. And so they come to us to figure out how to protect this $350,000. The first thing they can do is these assets they don't care about, the house, the car, and the burial, they're allowed to invest the money into those assets. They've never bought burial before, buy burial. That's an allowable expense. If their car is a piece of junk and it's about to break down, they can trade in their car and get a new one. Even people that are single and don't have a driver's license, they're legally allowed to own a car and be on Medicaid, and that's an allowable spend down. And Medicaid doesn't care if you have a broke down 2013 Ford Fusion like mine in the driveway or a brand new Cadillac. They don't care. And so that's a way to invest some of their money where one day they can pass that on to their children one day. The house. I met with someone earlier today that had about $400,000 or $500,000 and her husband's got dementia for the last several years and she wanted to know if she should pay down the mortgage. She owes $150,000. Don't pay off the mortgage yet, because if she ever gets sick and he gets sick and has to go to Medicaid, of this $350,000 she'd have to spend down, she can write a $150,000 check to the mortgage company and immediately have that much more equity in the house, and that's an allowable spend down. You can pay on debts of any sort, credit cards and that kind of thing. After that, we make sure people's houses are in good order. If they need anything from the house, from new floors, to paint, to appliances, to a TV set, they're allowed to spend down on that. And then if they get to the point where they've maybe spent a little bit, but they still have like $250,000 to spend, what we do, this sounds too good to be true, but we go and set up this thing called a Medicaid qualified annuity. And it's like we take that $250,000 that had to be spent and it immediately disappears for Medicaid. It's like we immediately spent it down. We're not hiding it. We're not trying to show Medicaid we're not trying to hide it from Medicaid. When we applied for Medicaid, we show the government that we wrote a check for that annuity. And what it does, it takes that big bucket of money they weren't allowed to have and it changes it into an income source for the well spouse that lasts the length of time that we get to pick. And so instead of $250,000 having to be spent down at the nursing home, all this $250,000 pays to the well spouse in monthly payments, maybe for 12 months or 24 months or 36 months. And every single month that's paying out to that well spouse, it's protected. We get to protect every single dime. We didn't have to spend any money to get on Medicaid. What's the catch? That sounds too good to be true if we can just legally disappear $250,000. The catch is with that annuity, if the well spouse, the one at home, dies before the annuity pays all the way out, the government, Medicaid's the first beneficiary on that annuity. If the sick spouse in the home dies, nothing happens. The annuity keeps paying out. But the catch is the well spouse has to outlive the annuity to protect all the wealth and make sure it all goes to the kids. It sounds worse than it actually is. If it's a 2-year-long annuity and the well spouse died 1 month in, the government's the beneficiary only up to the amount they've paid out in care for the sick person. So if you died 1 month in, the government's only paid $8,000 for the sick person, but the annuity's only paid a payment. There's still $250,000 that'll go to the family. If he dies at the very tail end of the annuity, 23 months, the government's paid out of pocket $200,000 on care, but there's no money left in the annuity for the government to get. It's all been paid out to the spouse, and it's but that's cool. Instead of having to spend $350,000, we can make it so they don't have to spend any of it. They can preserve it all by walking through these Medicaid rules that got put into place by Congress in 2005. Okay, for a single person, we don't have these cool annuities. If we have, say, $200,000, we got to spend it $2,000. We don't have the option of these annuities. But we give that money away, either into an irrevocable Medicaid trust or to their children if their children are good and trustworthy. And when we give that money away, everybody in here is saying, no, 5-year look back, Medicaid, you're not supposed to make gifts. We report the gifts to Medicaid, and Medicaid gives us a penalty period based on how much we could have used that pile of money to pay for our own care. Every $8,000 we give away during the last 5 years, they won't pay for 1 month of care. So if we gave away $80,000, it's a 10-month wait before Medicaid pays the nursing home bill. If we gave away $160,000, it's a 20-month wait. Without lawyer help, if there's a 20-month wait for giving that money away, it does the family no good because the family has to pay out of pocket during this 20 months to get the person on Medicaid. The nursing home's not going to let them in for nothing. They've got to figure out a way to pay the bill. But with our help, what we do, this is month 0 and this is month 20. The first month the nursing home bills come due, and the child that got gifted the money pays the nursing home out of that money. And we go back to Medicaid and say, guys, you gave us a 20-month wait because we gave away $160,000, but we just returned $9,000 by paying for mom's nursing home. And they say, yeah, instead of a 20-month wait, it's a 19-month wait. The next month, the kid pays the nursing home payment out of the gifted money. We go back and we get credit for the $9,000 going back to the parent. Now it's an 18-month wait. Every month, the kid uses the gifted money to pay for the care, and we shorten the waiting period in half where we can protect at least half of the money that got gifted to the child. So instead of having to spend down $200,000 to nothing, we're able to protect $100,000 at least of cash for the family instead of spending it to nothing. Does that make sense? Okay. How much time do I have?
You're fine.
Good. No one's walking out on me yet. Other legal issues that expose people. Have y'all dealt with guardianship and powers of attorney? Y'all have heard that before, those terms? We do not want guardianship if at all possible. If someone gets sick and I need someone to do things for me, like my family, I need my kids or my wife to be able to sign legal paperwork for me or do healthcare decisions, the only 2 ways for them to do that is to either go to court and get guardianship if I'm sick, or to have me sign powers of attorney, giving them the ability to do it. They kind of serve the same role. They make sure that the loved one can make decisions on behalf of the sick person. But if the sick person gets sometimes people are so incapacitated, they're so far demented, they can't sign power of attorney, or they're refusing care. The family has to go get guardianship. But generally speaking, if the family goes and gets guardianship, you cannot engage in Medicaid planning anymore to protect the assets. If someone gets under guardianship, it's like the court oversees the sick person's finances, and anytime we try to change deeds around to protect the house, or move money around into trusts or to kids to preserve it, we have to go to court in front of the judge and have a hearing to get permission to do that. A lot of judges have never practiced Medicaid planning before in their life, and they just don't know much about it. And it sounds crazy if you go ask a judge, hey judge, we want to pick up this person's life savings and give it to a kid. Are you okay with that? Well, they've only heard our story for 30 minutes, and that sounds outlandish to them. And most times judges won't do it. Although last week our judge did it. Thank you, Todd Watley, for being my witness. So generally we prefer people have powers of attorney for their own sake. Guardianship court costs many thousands of dollars to go get, and every year you have to go back to a lawyer and go back to court to renew the guardianship. So it costs many, many thousands of dollars in the long haul. Where powers of attorney, it's signed at a conference room table, very, very affordable, and they don't have to involve the court. And then one day if the person gets sick and we need to move assets to protect them, the powers of attorney, if they're done right, have all the powers for the kids to do that. What's your question?
Different types of powers of attorney, like a
Yeah.
financial or, so they can have like certain authority.
Yeah. She said, are there different types of powers of attorney? And yeah, there is. Different lawyers do them different ways, but when we set them up, there's a business or a financial power of attorney. So I pay my own bills, I do my own taxes, but if I get sick, here's who can do it for me. A healthcare power of attorney, you talk to your own physician and nurses, but here's who can make medical decisions if you can. HIPAA release, you all know about HIPAA, federal privacy law that makes it a pain in the butt to get health information. This will make life easier for the family to get health records. And then a living will, or some people call it an advance directive or DNR. It says if I have a stroke, heart attack, car accident, do everything they can to make me well. But if I'm irreversible, terminal, and brain dead, let the Lord take me home at that point. I don't want to indefinitely get plugged into tubes and machines, no forced hydration or nutrition, that kind of thing. Sometimes it's all in one. Some powers of attorney work right away and some don't come to life. They're called springing until the person's incapacitated. The whole idea with power of attorney is to plan for someone to take care of your decision making if you become incapacitated. But I think it's stupid to have a power of attorney that doesn't work until you're incapacitated. The whole point's for the family to be able to help the old person in an event of a crisis. But if it says it doesn't work till they're incapacitated, the family have to go to 2 doctors to get an affidavit signed proving they're incapacitated before they can help the old person. So generally you want them to be effective right away. That's a great question. Did I answer your question? Okay. So the legal issue, do not get guardianship unless absolutely necessary. Lawyers that don't deal with elderlaw think that if someone has a dementia or Alzheimer's diagnosis, they have to go get guardianship. The person can't sign POA. That's not what that's not what the law says. Even with the dementia or Alzheimer's diagnosis, the law says if the person has a moment of clarity and they can understand, like, yeah, I know this is my sister. Yes, I trust my sister to take care of me. They're allowed to legally sign valid powers of attorney. Even if they forget 90 seconds later, if they had a moment of clarity, they can sign it. And really what I mean by that, they need to know who their loved ones are, and can they trust their loved ones to help them out. That's what they need. Okay. And then last one, what if we never planned before, but our loved one needs care right now? So I was saying we help people with 2 problems. One is when they pass away, cleaning that up, and the other is protecting assets. These clients here generally fall in 2 camps. One camp is they're young and healthy, and we've got at least 5 years before we need care. And the other camp is crap's already hit the fan and we need help yesterday. We're in the nursing home right now. Things can be done in either camp, but the planning is way different based on if you're planning ahead versus you're planning right this second for a crisis. But don't give up. Just because there's been no planning ahead of time doesn't mean it can't get resolved now at the end of the day. But yeah, I'll shut up now. If anybody has questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Yeah. Anybody? Yeah.
What would you say the average age of your client is?
Yeah, she said, what's the average age of our clients? The people that are planning ahead of time to protect assets for Medicaid, 70 is about the right age. 70 to 80 is our normal client age. And I'd say between 65 and 75 is the sweet spot if we're doing advanced planning. The crap hit the fan planning, for the most part, it's elderly people that are in late 80s, mid 80s or so that need help with the crap planning. And normally, we don't visit with the elderly person till later on in the process. It's the children or the siblings of the elderly person that approach us to learn about how to protect assets at the beginning. And then later on, we'll likely meet the elderly person. But yeah, I'd say about 70 is the sweet spot for pre-planning. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Anybody else? What other questions do you guys have? Yes, ma'am. Liz.
Let me say something to you guys that might jog a question or two, that unless anyone in this room has photographic memory and remembers everything Jamison just said, think of this as the opportunity, and many of you in this room have had people call me and say, what do we do with mom? I've had calls from case managers at Advent, admissions people at nursing homes, things like that. We don't always remember all of this. And you heard Jamison talk, so you see how difficult it is knowing the rules and regs, government law and regulations for Medicaid, things like that. Have them call me or have them call the office. But if you're sitting with a family, like Candace called me about 11:15 today. She's somewhere and she's with family and just needed it. I'll try to talk them through some of the details and get the basics of what their Social Security is, what kind of assets they've got, what kind of dynamics you got going on in the family, and then I would recommend, if needed, only $150 to go and do a consult with Jamison, because you hear how much he knows, and he keeps on top of this. And just like someone might with bankruptcy law, you've got to have somebody with Medicaid and Elderlaw. So you can always call me when you're sitting in a family's home that's going through a dilemma or has issues or problems. And Louise will tell you, she's done that a few times, and we're trying to talk them off the ledge. And most often, they get relief because they've got someone that's listening to what they're going through. They're offering them some resources of hope that they're not going to have worked their entire life and lost everything that they've ever saved for just because a loved one needs to go in and get long-term care. So think of it from that standpoint, and I can't tell you from a personal level because all of you see this with your residential clients, your patients. Make sure your own business is taken care of. Now I'm going to ask you a question, and Ms. Gregory, if you want to answer, I do this every time we sponsor something where I speak. How many in this room have your own power of attorneys done? Whether it be your spouse, a trusted friend, or relative? Okay. So I want y'all to think about that just from a personal standpoint, and how, and Jamison, I want you to explain really, really in depth how important a power of attorney document can be when even just a spouse or even an adult child is involved.
Yeah.
And you sign their name, you have to take over something.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do it.
Power of attorney is just in your own life.
Yes. Real quick, if I will get into that, and I'd like to add, she asked her average client age. It's elderly people if they're in the OCRAP position. And also I would say $200,000 or $300,000 of assets is pretty typical for the average client, including equity in their home. Some of them have 200 or 300 plus the equity in their home, but that's normal. Sometimes people though have $20,000, $30,000, but there's weird stuff going on where they really need just an hour of talking through some issues. Or even if they don't need to hire us, but you guys have things going on that involves Medicaid planning, we're more than happy to jump on the horn with you and let you bend our ear and us bat some ideas around together, even if it doesn't involve you sending someone to us. Think of us as just someone in your Rolodex you can pick up and call on the telephone if you need help. The power of attorney stuff, like Liz said, it's very important no matter how old you are. Most people think if your life is pretty simple, you're not like a deca-millionaire and you don't have a bunch of apartment complexes and a bunch of rental houses, that like things will go smooth if you get sick and when you die. But unfortunately, that's not the case. I guess you can thank Congress for not making sense with the way laws are written. But when someone gets hurt, even if you're a spouse or a child, you can't make medical decisions for that person. You can't make business and financial decisions for that person without either going to court and getting guardianship or having power of attorney. I'm 41 this weekend, and my brother's 2 years younger than I am, and he was going to art school in Savannah, Georgia 10 years ago or so. He's never had any sort of mental health problems at all. And he started to become real paranoid, and he had a psychotic break where he thought people were trying to kill him. He's always been interested in like political conspiracy, and it's been entertaining for him, but he thought it was real and that people were out to come and kill him, and he had a breakdown. He threw away his cell phone, and he drove all the way from Savannah back to Arkansas in this panic state he was in. And whenever he got there, he did make it. We didn't know where he was for like a day and a half, but he was manic and just jumping off the walls, and we had to take him to a behavioral health hospital in Maumelle. And the very first thing they asked whenever we walked in the door of my parents was, "Are you his power of attorney? We can't talk to you and can't admit him unless you're the power of attorney." Well, thankfully, we had put him together a couple years before, but he was like 28 years old. How many 28-year-old kids have power of attorney? You know, not many. But if you're an adult, even if you have college-age kids, if they get hurt or sick at school and you have to step in and do something, you can't without power of attorney. And so it is super important. Brother, it was such a deep break. It took like 2 years to get back on track and live a normal life, but you would have no idea he ever had this issue in the past. He's not even medicated. He's never taken medicine, but it was a weird situation. And it's like, I learned firsthand how important it is to have these documents, even for young people, you know? Thanks for asking that, Liz. Anybody else have questions? Yeah, she said, can we do Oklahoma too? Yes and no. You're allowed to pick an estate plan anywhere in the country, just like you hear at businesses that like are incorporated in Delaware or wherever. You can pick where your estate plan's done. So I can help people that are planning ahead of time, that are from Oklahoma or other states, but I can't help people in crisis mode. I can't submit applications for Medicaid in Oklahoma. I do, my mentor is a guy named Todd Watley. He's licensed in Oklahoma, and I typically refer people out to Todd Watley to help them out if they're in a crisis situation. He's great. Yeah.
And a little further on that. So you don't just do the elderly planning though, someone in their 50s or younger.
Yeah, we shoot ourselves in the foot sometimes. All the time we have young people come in, they're like, "You're called Elderlaw, does that mean we're crap out of luck?" No, most of the people we help are elderly, but the estate planning, we help people from their 20s to 100. You don't have to be elderly to do your basic estate planning with us. In fact, I'd say our normal estate planning clients are probably, I'd say around 60 is our normal age. So you're so young, you'd be getting a jump on it, but yeah, we can certainly help you, no matter how old you are. Yeah.
I think I have a question. It's probably pretty specific.
Yes, ma'am.
I do like the idea that you offer the consultation. So I'm married to a person who's an only child and one living parent. And I've been trying to get them to do this, and sometimes it's difficult. He's 89, and he thinks he has things handled because he
Yeah.
has his son on joint bank accounts or joint son property, or just having a person on the joint bank account actually allow them to go get those funds out if they wanted to, if the person who's in the C-suite is also on the account.
Yeah, great question. She said she's married to a guy who's an only child, and his dad's still living, but the mom's passed on. Dad's slightly hard-headed, like all of us, but he thinks he's got everything situated, and she doesn't know if he'd have an open ear to go get a second opinion. But he's joint, the son has been added to Dad's bank accounts as a joint owner, and anything else aside from real estate as joint owner and that kind of thing. And she said, if Dad died, does that mean there'll be problems or not? There will not be problems. If the kid is on there as a joint owner, when Dad dies, he'll be able to immediately get in that bank account without going through probate, without having to probate a will or anything like that. The house too, there's different ways people can be added onto property, and you need to look at the verbiage of the deed. If there's tenants in common or joint tenants with rights of survivorship. if it uses the joint tenants with rights of survivorship, it'll say dad gives to dad and son as joint tenants with rights of survivorship the following property. We're good in that case. When dad dies, the joint tenant owns the whole property without court. If it doesn't say those magic words, when dad dies, his estate has to get probated because his half interest is stuck in dad's name. Even though it accomplishes the goal he thinks he's wanting to accomplish, avoid probate, it does bad things in other ways that he's not even aware of. It's probably not a problem for you, but if you add a kid as a joint tenant on a bank account, sure, it'll avoid probate, but if the kid gets married and gets a divorce, those are his assets too. Or if the kid gets in a car accident on a road trip to Branson and gets sued, that's that kid's assets. Opens a business and the business goes bankrupt and he files for bankruptcy, that's his assets, the kids. And so that there's a liability there. Hopefully you're nice and boring people that aren't overly exciting with problems, and that won't be a problem. Yeah, good, us too. And then too, tax-wise, sometimes people try to avoid probate and plan for Medicaid by like giving their house to their kid. But a lot of people are parents' age, they've owned these houses for a long, long time. There's no taxes owed when a house gets gifted to a kid, but later on when the kid goes to sell the asset, it accomplishes avoiding probate and getting out their name for Medicaid. But when they go to sell the house, mom might have paid $50,000 for the house that's worth $250,000 now, and the kid has to pay capital gains tax between the difference. At 15%, that's a $30,000 tax bill. And had we done it the right way, the kid would get, if it passes through like a trust or at death, the kid's tax basis is what it's worth when dad died. So if it's worth $250 and he sells it that year for $250, zero. So it's like you can avoid paying like many tens of thousands of dollars in taxes by setting it up the proper way.
Actually, that's my personal problem, because I have a house with those buttons on that. Okay. Yours isn't, so I have kids, obviously, I need to probably talk to them about this.
Sure, be happy to. And she said sometimes it's hard to approach the subject with an elderly person. I feel like that is such an easy segue to talk to them. Is like if you personally went in to talk to someone like me and you went back to dad and said, hey, we were doing our own stuff and they mentioned these handful of things. Does that sound like something that jives with what you've done before? And that's a good segue into getting him thinking about it and opening that conversation up. It doesn't look like you're picking on him. It looks like you're just having a conversation about things that got brought up in your own life. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
So sorry, you mentioned if you have a couple, you know, the sick person is making more money through Social Security than the spouse, then you can sometimes protect that and give the spouse more finances. Does that still work if that sick spouse passes away? Do they still get?
Yeah, what happens there? So she said if we have a husband and wife and one of them gets sick and needs care, the well spouse at home has really low income, and the sick spouse is supplementing their income every month. What happens when the sick person dies? Does the well spouse go back to having no income at all? Or what happens? Is that your question?
Yes.
Okay. With Social Security, they get the higher of the two. So if the husband made $1,000 and the wife made $2,000 and the wife dies, the husband gets $2,000 from Social Security at that point. And then with pension, like people that work for Ream or ArtBest or whoever have a pension, it comes down to what elections the person made during their lifetime when they retired, if there'll be a survivor's benefit or not. Sometimes people take a bigger amount during their lifetime with no benefit to the survivor. Other times the survivor gets a reduced amount, most oftentimes 50% of the survivor's pension. Yeah, thanks. What other questions you guys got?
I know you got a client at 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
I'm going to wrap it up. Like $150 consult, you're not required to retain Jamison that day at your appointment. Maybe you can, and then that $150 goes against anything with the attorney, will, trust, anything like that. So don't, your clients don't lose that $150.
And once we learn what you're wanting to accomplish and what your family looks like, we'll give you like 2 or 3 prices on what it would cost. And we'll never like use car salesmen to push you into doing anything. It's very much not pushy whenever you come in there. But yeah, thank you guys for your time. I'm
I
busting
want to
out
thank
here.
you,
Yeah.
and also we got about 20 people in here, so we got about $3,000 worth of knowledge today. Thank you for lunch and
Thank
stuff.
you, Holly.
Okay, just a few announcements. I didn't get to do the announcements at the beginning of the meeting. So our conference is 11th and 12th of September. You need to register. If you haven't already registered, it's going to be an awesome conference, and also we're doing a can drive. And for those of you guys that don't know, some of the speakers that we have, Dr. Margaret Trimwell, who's a neurologist out of Northwest Arkansas, Nicole Oliver, a nurse practitioner, Kirsten Dickens from the Alzheimer's Association, Jamison Bonds, Cody Young, another nurse practitioner, Sarah Peterson, a registered dietitian, Dr. Roberts, who she does palliative care, Dr. Alan Beachy, Nicole Lacari, who does the VA information, and then Carol Kirby, who's a nurse that works at Mercy for Mercy Rehab for Wound Care. We have an excellent lineup. It's going to be a lot of fun. You're welcome to see me or Louise or Ashley. If you want to know anything about the conference, we'd be happy to talk to you about that after the meeting. Also, our next coffee talk is going to be at Mansfield, September 9th at 10:30. So if you have a question about that, see Teresa. And then Alzheimer's Walk is September 20th. September's a busy month, you guys. September 20th is Alzheimer's Walk, and there's several people in here that are involved in that. We're going to do a coffee talk also in Salisal. The Senior Care Alliance has wanted to kind of expand into Oklahoma, and that one's going to be at September 17th at the Nutrition Center in Salisal. So our next regular meeting, because we're having a conference in September, is October 22nd, and it's going to be sponsored by Encompass. Also, all of the stuff I just said, because it's a whole lot of information, is on our website. So I encourage you, I get people to ask questions, and guess what I do when I'm on the phone with them to answer their question? I get on the website. So please check the website for more information on that. And I think that was quick announcements, because we're running out of time, but I want to do our speeches. So I'm going to let Ashley go first, since she's standing right here. So thank you guys so much for coming. If you want to know more about the Senior Care Alliance, don't hesitate to ask us.
All right, well, I'm Ashley with Mercy Rehab. I'm super excited to be here and be part of the board, and it's such a blessing. If anybody wants to be a part of the board, please reach out to us. We don't know kind of how people's schedule are. If it's something that you're interested in, we would love to talk to you and maybe ask you some questions, and then we can get you an application for that. So keep that in your mind about a board member for next year for Senior Care Alliance. So Mercy Rehab, we are an option for inpatient rehab. It does not require a referral. So if you have a friend, a family member, somebody that's just weak and falling and just would benefit from like a recharge for about 2 weeks in our rehab, we get them stronger, and then our plan is home. We will discharge them to a skilled facility if needed, but we really like to put people back out in the community. Something really exciting for us, News Weekly for 2025, we were #1 in this region, in this area of Arkansas. So we're so excited. We're #2 over all of Arkansas, which is a huge honor. So we're really excited about that. We have an amputation support group that's still going. DJ facilitates that, and it's just amazing to see God's truly work at hand, bringing these people that's had amputations and be on each other's, just be there for each other and kind of teach what we can't, because there's a lot of stuff that we try to prep these people for what's going to happen, and they can firsthand tell them how it's going and see that they have a future. But other than that, my phone number is 479-957-1700. And if anybody wants to co-market or have an event coming up, let me know. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Teresa. I'm from Van Buren Legacy Heights and Memory Lane. We have independent living, so if y'all know anybody that's getting tired of maintaining their home or like to be spoiled, we cook, clean, and do their laundry and let them come and go as they please and do activities. It's just a nice family atmosphere. And we have 3 memory care secured units. If you have a loved one that needs some help there. It's a nice family atmosphere also. We have 24-hour nurse care, CNA care, and a great administration.
And we take the Medicaid waiver.
And we take the Medicaid waiver. And my number is 479-262-6466. Thank you.
Putting on a different hat here. Thanks to Blanche and Western United Methodist Church for letting us use the facility today. But the way Blanche and I know each other is through the River Valley Ovarian Cancer Alliance. We've been around for a little over 18 years now. And just would like to invite the public. We're having a butterfly release next month. September is Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month. And it is Sunday, September the 14th at 2 p.m. at the public library. And I'm happy to send our invitation or whatever, but just from a different perspective, if you know anyone that has passed away with ovarian cancer, would like to honor memory, support someone going through the struggle and the battle right now. We want to release a butterfly in their honor, their memory, their name, anything, but just give me a call. My cards and Jamison's cards are on the back table. Just give me a ring anytime. Thank y'all.
Hello, Brittany with Heart of Hospice. We do palliative and hospice care in this area. We do also hospice care in Oklahoma for our Oklahoma people. We meet the patient and their family where they are. There's a lot of misconceptions about hospice and a lot of fears. So if anyone would be ever agreeable to let us come out and talk to them about what their goals are and their concerns are, there's no obligation either. No order needed from the physician for us to go do a consult like that. I did want to introduce one of our chaplains, spiritual caregivers, John Hamby. I'm hoping to get him a little bit more involved in Senior Care Alliance. You guys might have seen him around. I know Holly, he visits your facility. But he's here for our community just as well as our patients and families, and often provides support to different caregivers in the facilities. So if you have any questions or want to talk more about hospice care, you can call me at 479-462-7932.
Hello, I'm Trish Berry, and I'm wearing our new brand today. I work for a Medicare company, and I want to talk a little bit about Medicare just very briefly today. We're on the beginning of Medicare open enrollment, so starting September 1st, your beneficiaries will start receiving their what's called ANOCs, Annual Notice of Change, so that'll be coming in the mail. Very important that they read that this year. There's a lot of changes to Medicare about drugs, the cost of drugs. I know we had an emphasis last year where if your drug cost hit $2,000, that was your limit for the year. This year is going to be $2,100, but just getting a drug plan now is going to be more costly. As you might understand, whenever you're starting to limit the cost of drugs, it's got to be made up somewhere. So there's going to be a lot of changes this year. What I want to talk about other than that is I work for Cigna Healthcare, which was recently purchased by Healthcare Service Corporation, which is a large Blue Cross Blue Shield company out of Chicago, Illinois. They own 5 Blue Cross Blue Shield companies. So you'll start to see this new brand. We're just rebranded, same people, just a different name, and it's going to be HealthSpring. So you'll start seeing that this year, and it'll start actually in January, that new branding. But anyone who needs to talk about their Medicare plan, I advise them to reach out to a Medicare broker. one that's been certified and trained and licensed, and do not take those phone calls over the phone. Those are bad actors, scam artists, and they will mess you up. So I just want to tell you that today, that Medicare is coming, and look for those ANOCs in the mail. And then please review your drug costs this year, because you will see some changes. Thanks.
I'm gonna jump up here because I also have a meeting that I need to get to, but I'm Amy, I'm with Advanced Wound Therapy. This is my second meeting with Senior Care Alliance, so I've met some of you before, but look forward to meeting more of you. We are a mobile wound care company, so we go to the patient in their home and do the advanced wound therapies based on their needs. We usually partner with home health, so typically we go out once a week, and then we write the orders, order supplies, manage wound bags, all those things with home health, and coordinate with them to go usually 1 or 2 other days a week. We do see patients in Oklahoma as well, so if any of you have patients that need treatments in Oklahoma, we can go there, and I just appreciate y'all having me here.
Hi everyone, I'm Mandy Kirkendall. I'm with Brookdale Senior Living, and we are an assisted living community here in Fort Smith. I'm a certified therapeutic recreation specialist, and I'm also our program coordinator for our memory care program. We call it Clare Bridge. And we have availability in our Clare Bridge program as well, if anyone is interested, and a little bit of availability with our assisted living as well. Our number is 479-484-5556. Thank you.
No one else? Okay, so check out our website. It's arseniorcarealliance.org. Thank y'all for coming and your attention for Jamison. Appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing you at the conference.